Yeah, so welcome to
Rust-proofing your marriage.
Rust-proofing your marriage.
Yes.
A very interesting name, a very interesting concept that hopefully we can unpack and give you some insight in. I want to welcome each and every one of you, those that have just joined, those that have joined a little while, those that have been here throughout the series. Thank you very much. And those that are joining us for the first time, welcome. You are very welcome. And over to you.
Okay. When I was doing research on this topic, a lot was revealed, and it's actually quite nice because it flows nicely in with what we did last week, and then it flows very nicely into what we're going to do next week. So, without further ado, I want to kick off, and I want to kick off by starting with the scripture. It's Revelation 2, verses 1 to 4, and I'll read it. And it says, "To the angel of the church of Ephesus write these things, says, he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. And you have persevered and have patience, and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Remember, therefore, from where you have fallen. Repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent." Very strange verse to use for marriage, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we take our marriages, I mean, if we take along the vein of rust-proofing. Rust-proofing means that you've had something for a long time and it's grown old, or it's gotten rust, hasn't it? So if we look at our marriages in the beginning, we focused on each other, and your spouse was your be-all and end-all, wasn't it? I mean, I can remember when we first got together, it was, staying up until after midnight and finishing each other's sentences as you...
All those good things.
Yeah, all those good things. But then life happens, doesn't it? Life happens, things get busy, you start a new job, or you get into your sport, or the dreaded one is the kids come along, hey? And the kids come along, and then that becomes your focus, isn't it? So you're not as interested in your spouse as what you were before, because something new has actually come and stolen that focus. I just look at from our perspective, is things change in our life all the time.
Your life changes, your priorities, your focus areas. And whereas, I suppose, with a new car, for the first couple of days, weeks, months, it's all about driving the car and keeping it clean and not eating in it and not drinking in it and taking off your shoes before you get in. It depends how you
and
are.
Having it washed on a weekly basis, and then it stops. So, but then something else has taken your focus. So if we relate that to marriage, you're not as interested in your spouse as what you were before. So something new has come and stolen that focus.
To be clear, you still love your spouse.
Yep.
That doesn't change.
No.
But it's the focus.
So let's take it from a woman's perspective, because I'm speaking now, is you're a good mother, but you're distracted. Or you're a good provider from a man's perspective, but you're not at home. So I might be a good mother and a good wife and a good homekeeper, but my focus isn't on you. Or if you start a new job or a new hobby or whatever the case may be, you're still a good husband, but the focus isn't on me anymore. It's been distracted. So God says in the verse that we just read that we're doing everything right, but we've lost our first love. And when we've lost our first love, it's a serious thing. It's not good for God. I mean, it talks in the Bible about when you lose your first love, He's not happy. So if you relate that to a marriage, the minute you lose your first love, what starts to happen is the marriage starts to deteriorate. Agreed?
Agreed.
So if you don't get back what he says in that verse, he's actually going to remove his manifested presence. So if you think of the Holy Spirit, you think of the Trinity, they're always present. We are in him, he's in us. But what he will remove is his manifested presence, which is a big thing. And because Jesus is all places and all times, what's important is that manifested presence, which is the fruits of the Spirit. So if we look at the fruits of the Spirit, and if you relate this to marriage, I thought this was quite awesome, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And the very first one that I mentioned there is the love goes. The love goes. Then the joy goes. So the joy within your relationship goes. The peace goes. The kindness goes. The gentleness, the faithfulness, and of course the self-control, which we'll go through as we go through the things tonight.
Yeah, I'd almost like to add one in there, is that the safety goes.
Yes.
So as these things fall away, the safety of the marriage goes as well. Because when your wife or your husband isn't your first love, something else is.
That's quite cool. So something that struck me when I read this verse and I was meditating on it is it talks about the lampstand being removed. So in other words, when your marriage is not being a lampstand, it's not being the light that the Lord, it's not being the light in the world. And if God removes that lampstand, it means that he's moving his manifested presence, which means the light starts to grow dim. And if we look at our marriages from a godly or biblical perspective, is your marriage is what shows the world what the relationship needs to be between us and God the Father. And if he removes his manifested presence, that means that we become dim. We become dim in the world, so they will not be able to see us in the darkness, which is quite a sad thing to ponder on. So if we are supposed to be the bride and groom, the example of the relationship between man and God, what is depicted in marriage, when that light goes, we cannot be that example any longer. And that's a bit of a problem for me. So God wants you as a couple to teach others through your marriage how to love him. So if you've lost your first love for someone, something else has it. We were speaking about it earlier. That the minute you lose your first love, it doesn't mean to say that you've lost it, but you've lost it here. It just means that first love has been taken by something else. The focus has been removed. And we spoke about job, friends, sport, hobbies, children. And there's one more that I want to add in here, and I think people's eyes are going to go popping, is church is another one. We had a good friend of ours that was actually a pastor. And they had some issues because he was permanently at the church. He was permanently doing the church work, as he was calling it. And at one evening, he came home and she was not happy. And she actually, what came out of her mouth was, "I just wish you would move your bed and just go and sleep there." Because what had happened is something else had become more important than what she was. Something else had taken the focus of her. And sometimes it is. It can be. I mean, anything that takes the focus off your marriage is not a good thing.
Yeah. Sometimes good things can be bad things. Because we need to understand, where's that good thing leading me?
Yeah.
Is it leading me away from my wife or my husband? If it's leading me away from them, then it's not good, because God doesn't want us to be separate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we've spoken in other sessions where we talk about God's at the top, and then the husband, the wife, and then the kids. Everything needs to be in balance and in an alignment in order for there to be unity and for there to be a blessing and an anointing. So when things are out of order, there cannot be a blessing. So the next scripture that I want to look at is in Revelations 3:16. We're going through the Revelations.
I see. So hopefully we have Revelation.
I hope so. So Revelations 3:16 says, "So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth." Now, that verse for many years sat with me, and I was thinking, but why hot or cold? It's quite lukewarm is actually okay. I mean, you're not cold, but you're there. You're getting to the hot. You're getting to the hot. But I like to use the analogy of, have you ever had a hot cup of coffee and you've forgotten about it, and you go to it and you take a sip of it, and it's like lukewarm. It's like tepid. It's
room
not
temperature.
It's not really lekker. So what God is trying to say here is not only with his relationship, but with the relationship that you have with your spouse. It cannot be, it's got to be hot or it's got to be cold. The minute it's in the middle, it's on dangerous ground. Okay?
Yeah, it's saying that when you go, it's either cooked or it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's good when it's raw, and that's fine. And it's good when it's cooked, but it's not good when it's halfway done.
Because you can't eat the food.
Yeah. And you can't eat of the marriage, and you can't feast on the marriage.
So you can't be half in or half out. You need to be all in or all out.
Correct.
Yeah. So according to science, all things are either dynamic, static, or entropic. So when you look at something that's dynamic, it's growing, it's building, it's moving forward, it's evolving. Yeah. And if you look at something that's static, it says it's for itself, it's standing still, but it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But if you look at something that's entropic, it means that it's busy dying. So there's your hot or your cold or your lukewarm.
Yeah.
So the minutes, even if something is static, it's dying. I mean, let's go back to the analogy of the car, is if you leave your car to stand, I know with lockdown now, if you've left your car to stand and you didn't start it every now and then, it's going to cause a problem.
Yeah, battery goes flat spots on the tires, rust,
Yeah.
all those things that come in, dirt, you name it. There's all of those things that are negative when you're static, when you're not moving.
Yeah.
Whether you're going backwards or forwards, if you're not moving, it's nothing.
It's dying, in essence. So as a couple, as you're sitting there, is maybe think to yourself, where are you today? Which of those three are you sitting at? And obviously, we all want to be from a dynamic perspective. We all want to be growing. We all want to be building. But that's something that you need to sit with your spouse and work out how are we going to grow, because growing is good.
Yeah.
If you're standing still, it's not good. So when we look at the marriage, when you get married, you go on honeymoon. And we often say that the honeymoon period is over when things start to not get so lekker. People say, oh, the honeymoon period is over.
Yeah, when you start seeing the little faults, die klein jakkelsies. When you start, you brush your teeth like that, do you?
You didn't squish the toothpaste from the bottom, you squished it in the middle.
Can you chew a bit softer, maybe?
You didn't put the toilet seat down.
Yeah, all those
things.
When those noticeable things come in, that's when we say the honeymoon is done.
So what that basically means is you've settled into ruts and the marriage begins to get boring. Yeah. So bad things begin to happen, and long before the actual crisis hits, we see it when we couple counsels. Counsel couples is the crisis.
Let's say that again, I didn't quite get it.
Long before when we so pick on me not tonight.
No, I just want to hear the full sentence.
When we counsel couples.
Oh, there we go. Yes, that makes sense.
So long before we counsel the couples, we actually go back to where it started. And it's generally when that honeymoon period starts to die off, and those ruts and that boredom starts to set in, because the minute the boredom starts to set in, you start to nitpick. And then all of a sudden, as Henry claimed it, the tower of accusation starts to build. And then what happens? There's an explosion. And then, of course, there's a crisis.
Yeah.
But as we've taught in this series, is we need to look at the root cause. And in this case, from a rust-proofing your marriage, is you need to look at where did the rust set in. And the rust sets in when you started getting bored, when the excitement started going.
Rust, basically, if you look at from a natural perspective, rust sets in on something that you're not taking care of.
Yeah.
So if you aren't cleaning it, or you aren't protecting it, or you aren't keeping it safe, or you aren't treating it with anti-rust or whatever the case is, that's when rust comes in.
Yeah. And we would know, living at the coast, you need to take extra care.
Absolutely.
So when you stop growing as a couple, that's when it starts to get boring and the rust sets in. Yeah. So I'm sure that everybody knows that marriage is hard work. It's an everyday thing in order to stay passionate and growing. You can't just leave it. It's hard work.
You know, marriage isn't a plant that just
No.
sits outside, gets rain, has water, and grows. Marriage is a bit more than that.
I agree. So luckily there's a chemical that removes emotional rust. No?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me.
Yeah. You're not going to like
Really?
this one. Yeah.
There's a chemical.
Yeah, there's a chemical.
Okay, tell me.
It restores and it wards off rust. Both.
All right.
It's a
interesting.
swat two flies with one swat. That's how you say
it. Kill two flies with one
swat.
Okay. Where are you today? Okay. Yes, tell me what is this?
Babe, it's romance.
Okay, I failed. Okay, can we stop now? Because we know all the men here are like, oh my word.
You can't tell them that they failed.
I said I failed.
Yeah, but if you failed, then they failed.
I can be romantic.
You need to tell them how. Right?
Next subject.
You need to tell them how. You need to show them how. The men.
We'll get there.
I'll show the ladies. You need to show the men.
I'll talk to them.
Can I leave that to you?
You can.
Okay.
I'll talk to them.
So it's one of the most important issues. It's probably the most understood one in both men and women. Do you agree with that one? That romance, when I say romance to you, it's really misleading.
Yeah, it is. I'm sure you're going to unpack it a little bit, but you and I will have very different ideas of what romance is.
Yeah, because you're a man and I'm a woman. We're different.
Yeah.
I know what romance is.
No, you know what your romance is, and I know what my romance is.
Okay. So let's see if I can get your romance right.
Okay, go.
Okay.
No, you're wrong. Go, try again.
Can I try again?
You can.
Okay. So when you meet initially, you always put your best foot forward. Okay. And this
because if you saw all of this initially, you would have been all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you meet, you overlook all the bad stuff. And love is blind. That's true. Right? Love is blind. Why is love blind? Because of the love drug. You unpacked the love drug last week.
I thought I didn't have my glasses on at the time. But hey, if it's a love drug, that explains it better. Yes, I did.
Yes. But you also mentioned last week that when that love drug starts to wear off, which is between 6 and 18 months.
Approximately. Yeah.
That's when we start to see the bad stuff. We start to get bored. We start to, it starts
get frustrated, irritated,
but the thing is, when the love drug wears off, we can't seem to remember how to get back to how we were, to our first love.
How to recreate the love drug.
Yes, because you can't recreate the love drug.
No, because it's a drug, and drugs are illegal. Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs. But the love drug ain't illegal because God gave it to us.
There we go.
Yeah. So, but I've actually got some good news because you get two types of romance. There's the instinctive and there's the educated.
Okay.
Okay, so instinctive is based on the love drug. It happens by instinct. Your body tells you what to do.
Okay, which I don't have. But
no, you had it.
Oh, I had. Did I have it?
You had it. You had it. So
I was romantic.
You were.
Oh.
Way back when.
Yeah.
All those years ago.
How old am I? Okay, moving on.
Then the second one is the educated. So when you look at the educated, you know how important it is.
I've only got a matric. Is that all right?
That's all right. Okay, you can do this. You can do this.
I'm good.
So when you educate, you know how important it is. You know how important romance is.
You've told me many times.
Yes. But then you also know how to do it and you know how to keep it. So recreate it.
Maybe. I feel I'm going to talk myself into trouble.
Yeah. Okay. And once the instinct fades, we need to educate ourselves. So I'm going to educate you tonight, along with everybody else.
Deep breath.
Deep breath, breathe. You can do this, babe. So overall, people believe that romance is for women and for strange men. General.
Stranger
The
danger.
world. No, man. Think about it. It's for women. I mean, you think about romance.
Yeah, no, it's
automatic.
Those novels, those everything. It's a chick flick.
The movies, it's a chick flick. It's romance. Yeah. But it's not. What if I told you it's not?
Yeah.
It's
It
not.
is.
No, it's not. It's for both of us. Do you know that you got a romantic bone too, and you need romance as a man? But wait, I'm getting it.
It's different.
I'm getting it. It's different. It's different.
Okay, because I'm going to say, hey, chick flicks don't do it.
No, you don't need to do chick flicks. That's mine. That's my romance.
All right, got it.
But it's not really chick flicks. It's other stuff. It might be for some of the ladies that are watching.
Okay.
But wait.
Then it's ladies flicks, not chick flicks.
No, because I'm a goose.
Goose flicks. Oh my word. Let's move on.
So most people believe that romance is a feeling that you can't control. They believe it's a seasonal extra, like Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Because that's the day of romance.
It's when you have suddenly, okay, let's be romantic and buy the balloons and the flowers and the chocolates and give them to our wives without a name in them as gift spoons.
No, we don't celebrate.
No, we don't, but anyway.
Because I expect Valentine's Day every day.
You do?
I do.
Yeah.
Because you love me.
I do.
So, however, what if I told you that romance is in your control? Because it's a choice.
That makes sense.
Because you need to choose to be romantic.
You do. I do.
And what if I told you that if you chose to be romantic, and if I choose to be romantic, because it's both the ladies and the gents, then you can rust-proof your marriage. But wait, we're getting there.
Okay.
So, romance should be a daily feature in your marriage. Yeah. Remember I said your marriage is hard work? Yeah. Romance needs to be a daily feature.
I'm very apprehensive as to where this is going.
Just agree. Just nod. Yes.
Not
yes, love. Yes, love. Yes, love. Okay. So, and romance is for every day for both men and women. See, I'm not excluding you.
Okay.
Okay. Would you agree with me when I say men have just a greater need for romance as what women do?
Yes, but not the romance that
now let's just take romance from your perspective, romance, and romance from my perspective. Remember we spoke about love languages
last
week.
Romance how I want it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a huge need for romance how I want
how you want it.
But my idea of romance isn't what's being depicted as romance through media and through, I mean, don't give me flowers. That's not going to work.
No, that's not going to work.
Don't take me to a soppy movie. That's not going to work.
I agree with you.
Okay.
But hang on.
All right. No.
We spoke about love languages last week.
We did.
We already spoken out there that different people have different love languages.
Yes.
Okay. This is just taking it deeper.
So people have different romance languages too.
Correct.
Now that makes sense to me.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Now hang on.
I'm hanging.
So we've said that there's an equal need for both a man and a woman to be romantic or be romanced.
That now makes sense.
Okay. And would you agree that romance is the cornerstone for passion and intimacy?
Because when I'm feeling romanced, I'll have a greater will and need to be passionate, which will create an intimacy.
Correct.
So I said what you said, just longer.
Just longer.
Well done.
Yep. So would you also agree then that romance protects and promotes growth within the marriage?
Well, it would.
When you explained it the way you just did.
Yes, it would.
From your perspective and from my perspective. Okay, so when you stop being romantic, you lose the skills of relating as a couple, and you get lazy, and you stop being the person you need to be for your spouse.
Mm.
So, because to be romantic is actually a skill.
Yeah. And if I'm not being romantic, I'm being selfish.
Yes.
And if I'm being selfish, I'm not in a relationship, I'm in a selfness.
And when you're in a relationship, it's all about the other person. Remember going back to first love again?
Yes.
It was all about me, and for me, it was all about you.
Yeah.
That was being romantic.
That makes lots of sense.
We're going down the elevator.
We are. Let's go.
Okay. So it also closes the door to outside temptation. Would you agree? Because if we're passionate, we're intimate, we're connected.
Because I'm being filled up, what more could I possibly want?
Remember, it removes the border.
Yes.
So it closes the door to temptation from the other side,
Correct.
from the outside.
Correct.
Okay. So that's how it protects the marriage.
Yeah. This is a very weird analogy to use, but we used to love going out quite often.
Yeah.
And then we watched a particular cooking show, and I learned how to cook the perfect steak.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't go out for steak anymore.
No.
We refuse to order steak from restaurants because we compare it to home, and home's got a better steak.
It's actually a very good analogy.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
That's what came to me now.
Hey,
that's very smart.
I am. Smarty.
But the reality is, if you've got something really good at home, why would you want to even go and try it anywhere else? Because you know you're just going to be disappointed.
I mean, we don't even order it. We don't even want to taste it. It's boring.
Yeah.
That becomes boring.
Correct.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. So I just want to put it out there that affairs are never justified. But one of the reasons that they do happen is when needs aren't being met. Okay? Because my need is not being met, and I'll use myself. So some guy out there starts to meet that need, automatically it removes my focus off you, and I then begin to focus on this other man.
Because if some other man is doing my job, and my job is to make you feel special and make you feel chosen and make you feel like a queen in my home. If I'm not doing that and someone else is doing it, then you would be attracted to them because it's only natural. And unless you've got a very, very strong willpower and resolve, you're going to fall for it.
You will.
Okay.
And I mean, that applies to the ladies as well. If you aren't talking to your husband's needs, you're opening that door. And once again, it's not justified, but it's a fact of life.
Yeah, it's not justified, but it is real. And this is where you need to protect that rust from setting in.
So marriage becomes mundane and boring, loses excitement, which makes the outside world very inviting. So the more romantic you are, the stronger your marriage is, and the more it is likely to grow. We've said that. So if we look at the first, let's start unpacking the romance now, because I'm sure everybody's thinking, what is romance?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm sure there's a worldly version, and every person has an idea of what romance is.
Please, I need some more info.
Okay, so let's go.
Yeah.
So the first one, and tell me if you agree or not. The first one is meeting an unspoken need or desire. I'm going to say that again because it's really good. It's really important. Meeting an unspoken need or desire. Let me unpack it a bit more for you.
Yes.
Okay, so if you have to keep saying it, it's not romantic. So if I have to keep saying to you, babe, bring me flowers today. Babe,
I'll probably forget.
You probably will. You most definitely will. Or if I say to you, babe, go buy me a card at the shop. And in the card, you need to write, you love me, but you need to say you love me a lot.
Like 2 times a lot.
2 times. X lots.
Okay. I'll forget. But anyway, yeah.
Or I say to you, babe, I'm really feeling like being spoiled. Can you please take me out for supper?
Yeah. That's a spoken need, though.
Yes, but that's not romantic.
Yeah, that won't be, because then it's an expectation.
It's obedience when you do it. which means you're disobedient. Sorry. Moving on swiftly.
Please.
So when I have to keep telling you and you do it, then it's obedience, which is not a bad thing either. You need to be obedient. See.
To be romantic.
No, not to be romantic. That's another issue.
Okay.
It's another issue. I'm just hinting. No, I'm just hinting.
Okay.
So when I say you do, then you're being good boy.
Right. Okay.
But you're going to earn extra brownie points when you do it without me having to tell you, because then you're being obedient and you're being romantic. Then it's double brownie points.
Because then it's unspoken and it's a need.
Yes.
And I've picked up on the clues and I've done it for you.
Yes.
That's quite cool.
That is quite cool. Then you're being romantic.
That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could do that.
You can. You have been doing that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you have to keep saying something, then somebody isn't getting it right. So it's almost like a red flag that goes up. Yeah. So if I have to keep telling you, or you have to keep telling me, then it's a red flag that's going up, that there's a miss in communication here, and the romance is going out the back door. Okay, so red flags. All right. So when you are dating, it's natural to study your partner. Remember way back when you would almost stay, I mean, I know I did. I would look to see what you liked and what you didn't like. And
you'd pay attention.
I would pay attention.
Make mental notes.
Make mental notes, make written notes of what you like.
Don't put this in the food.
Yeah, because your well-being and your happiness was important.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But then when you get married, that all goes. Why?
Because we find another first love. Someone or something we can give that attention to.
So would you say that when you have somebody in your thoughts all the time, it means that it speaks your importance?
It is. It does.
When you're always considering them, how they react or how they feel, and you preemptively do things that pleases them and makes them happy, it makes the other person feel loved, important, romance. So how many times in the last week have you considered your spouse before making a decision? I mean, I take us. Before we do anything, we'll always check with the other one. No matter how small or mundane something is. It's because I won't make a decision without you, and I know you don't make decisions without me.
Yeah, because then we're part of one, because we are one.
Yes. And even if you know what the other person's answer will be, you still check in. And I'm not talking about buying big things. I'm talking about day-to-day stuff. If your friends say come over for supper, I never ever will say yes, because I know Henry will want to go. I'll say, I'll get back to you. Let me just check with Henry first. And it's not because I can't make the decision. It's because I want to show him that he's a part of the decision and that we make decisions together, not only for us, but for outside people as well. We make decisions together. We are unified and we speak in unity. Important.
Very important.
So when you did this right in the beginning, when you had that first love, you did this in an attempt to win them over. Would you agree with that? So you were like pursuing
I was trying to impress you.
You were pursuing me and I was pursuing you.
Correct.
So you did that in an attempt to win the person over, but then you get married and you stop doing just that. So you stop focusing on the person and you stop pursuing them. How often have we counseled couples where either the husband or the wife have just stopped pursuing each other? Mostly. So romance says that you're on my heart regardless of what I'm doing. And when a husband or wife are not romantic, it says, I don't think about you. I only think about you when I have to. So a successful, happy, strong marriage shows that you pay attention to what your spouse needs and what wants, so that you can please them and serve them, and you take responsibility to meet the needs in their life that they could not meet themselves. Because ultimately, that's why I chose to marry you and you chose to marry me. It's because I had unmet needs and you met them. Okay. So the core issue is desire. We all want to be desired. Okay. So would you agree that the greatest need is to be loved?
That makes sense.
And would you agree that the greatest fear is to be rejected?
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't be nice if you rejected me.
No.
No.
No. Okay. So would you say that romance is the language of desire?
What is my desire?
Yeah.
You. And if you my desire, I'll romance you. That makes sense.
And vice versa.
Yes.
So if you are not romantic, it communicates a lack of desire. Okay, so baby, you see, you are romantic.
Okay. Because I care.
Because you care for me. Because you desire me. And I desire you. Yes.
Nice.
Okay, so let's look at why we fell in love. The first reason is initially it was the outward stuff. I saw you. And you looked yummy.
Yeah. I don't blame you. If I saw me. No.
So you don't know the person, but you are attracted to them because of the outward stuff.
Visual attraction.
Visual attraction.
Yeah, because
it's that chemistry.
Okay.
The second reason is I like the way you make me feel about myself.
I felt all warm and fuzzy. Oh, that's when you were close. Anyway.
So if you make me feel bad about myself, would you agree that it makes me feel bad about you?
That makes sense.
Yeah?
When you meet people that mock you or joke about you or insult you.
You feel bad about you, but you also feel bad about them. You don't like them anymore. So the third reason is you desired me. You demonstrated through your actions proactively that you desired me. You were pursuing me, proactively wanting to pursue me.
Correct.
Okay? And you were consistently making me feel special, and therefore I fell in love with you. And you fell in love with me because I was reciprocating. Because the more you were pursuing me, the more I pursued you.
Correct.
So do you think that today, all these years later of us being married, that if we had that same formula, would it still work?
Of course it would.
Of course it would. And do you think in doing that, we're continuously growing because I'm learning more about you, you're learning about me, and we're consistently, consciously going out of our way to fulfill needs and to create and burn a desire through romance? Because
we as people are dynamic. We don't stay the same for our entire life.
No.
Our likes change, our dislikes change, our outlooks change, our perspectives change. All these things change.
Yeah.
And if our spouse isn't paying attention to us, they're going to miss that.
Yeah.
And we're going to feel unromanced.
Rejected.
Yeah. Okay.
So you need to be speaking in your spouse's language, whether it be the love language or the romance language. You need to be speaking in that language. And would you agree that my love language is not the same as yours?
Correct.
And how often is it that I try and speak to you in my language and I expect you to receive it?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa. And that's where we get cross wires.
It is.
And I expect you to love me the way I want to be loved and vice versa.
Yeah.
But you don't. And that's when marriages start to get boring and they start to have a crisis.
Because you're not fulfilling a need or a desire.
Okay. So both men and women are romantic, but in different ways. You got it right, you see. So let's look at the top needs of a woman.
Yeah.
I'm giving you hints here.
Okay. Top needs.
All right, ladies. The first one is security. You mentioned it.
Okay. Get her along. Yeah.
No. Next. Security. Security. Oh, not that security. Not that security.
Okay.
If I say security is sections, I can't speak tonight. Sacrificially cared for and by an attentive husband. So sacrificially being cared for by an attentive husband.
So you don't want to go along?
No. No, I don't need it, but somebody else might.
Okay, so I need to sacrifice some of me in my love to you by paying attention to your needs.
Yes.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. That was number one. Number two is open and honest communication. I don't want the headlines. I want you to sit down and I want you to talk through all the detail, and don't forget the emotions.
Okay. Got it.
Right, so
do you need more?
Yes, wait. There's 4 for both of us.
Yes, okay.
So security, communication. The third one is non-sexual affection.
Are we back?
We're back there.
Okay.
We're back there.
All right. So number 3 is cuddling on the couch.
Yes.
Got it.
What else? That's not just non-sexual attention. Not just cuddling on the couch.
The odd hug.
The odd hug.
The kiss now and then.
Yeah.
The surprise grab from behind. Non-sexual. I got that. Non-sexual.
Yes. Yes. Because it makes us feel important. And it makes us feel valued.
And loved.
And loved. And romanticized.
Right.
Yeah. Then the 4th one is leadership. But
you desire leadership.
Yes, but I don't want to be dominated.
Right.
So you need to be the loving initiator of finances, spirituality, children in the house, and the romance.
I must initiate the romance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So have you got all of those?
Do I need to repeat? I'll get the notes, don't worry.
Okay. So now the top needs of a man.
How come so much less is written about men than women?
Because women need...
Talk more.
Yes, we talk more.
And need more.
And need more.
Okay, got it.
And men are a lot simpler.
Yeah, all right. We're easier to romance. Ladies, romance us. We're simpler, easier to romance.
It's actually very easy to romance a man, and I'll tell you how. The first one is respect.
Yeah.
Does that talk to you?
That does.
So respect, honor, put him as head of the home. That's romancing.
Yeah. If you need to know more about that, look at the role of the man and the woman. That's going to give you a lot on that. Can I do number 2?
No. We're going to
sexual contact. Sex. Number 2, sex. Top needs of men. Number 2, sex. Sexual contact. Okay.
You got to say that, buddy. Can we skip to 3 now, or do you want to repeat it again?
No, I just want to stay there for a moment.
You finally got it. But you need to go back to the woman's number 2.
Ladies, sex. Your man needs, number 2, needs sex. Okay, now you can go to number 3.
Next week you can talk about the intimacy, which unpacks your number 2 in detail.
Cool.
Then it's your turn.
Nice. Carry on. Number 3. Yeah, you may.
Number 3 is
but before you get there, I just want to say number 2, sex, ladies. Okay, yes, number 3 is...
May I?
Yes, I've been waiting.
You need to tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you can
the third one is friendship with his wife. Because you don't need another mother.
Oh, please, no.
No.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So
it's not you, and I don't want it to be you. Because then number 2 ain't going to work for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. But how many wives out there become mothers to their husbands?
Yeah. That's a whole topic on its own, because suddenly wives who become moms start treating their husbands as one of the children.
Yeah.
And talking to them in the same way, addressing them in the same way, instructing them in the same way. It almost seems to happen naturally.
It does.
So that's something to guard against.
Especially when we move into motherhood. It seems to switch on, but then the mommy gene switches on, but the wife one then switches off because you be focused on Mom.
And now you're so much mommy, you're no more wife.
Wife, which means the focus gets moved. We spoke about the focus right in the beginning. The focus gets moved and you become mommy and you forget to be wife, which means the first love goes out the back door. Okay. The fourth one is domestic support. But hang on, that doesn't mean that the wife does all the housework.
Okay.
Yeah. But you want, as a man, you want your wife to be domestically centered. And what that means is because we are really good at turning a house into a home. And you like the place that has been prepared for you.
Yeah, because my idea of a house is a couch, a TV, and a bed. And that's it. It's a house. But it's not a home.
It's not a home.
It doesn't have the comforts. It doesn't have the love.
It's the woman's touch.
Yeah.
No?
I like
So
that.
would you agree with those four?
I would. Especially number 2.
Okay. So sometimes we are frustrated and not speaking each other's language. We're moving on now.
Okay.
And then we force our spouse to speak our language. Which is why I said last week about the intimacy, the non-sexual intimacy. It was
and that's why I said what did
sexual
I say?
Intimacy. Yes. Do you see the difference?
Because you give me what I want, I'll give you what you want.
Okay. So, all great marriages are emotionally bilingual. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. We speak 2 languages.
What are the 2 languages?
I speak man, me is man, and I speak woman.
And what if I told you that eventually, if you've got a great marriage and you're connected to your wife, that your first language becomes wife, and my first language becomes husband?
That's interesting. I could do with that.
You know why? Because if you're in tune to always looking at what the other person is needing and you continuously wanting to serve them, that is the first thing that goes through your mind. Because you're not thinking about self anymore.
Whenever I'm faced with a decision, I'm thinking, how's this going to affect my wife?
Correct.
And what would she be thinking of this?
Right.
And how would she be considering this? And then I'm thinking, wife.
Yes.
And my word, I'm a woman.
No, baby, you're not. You're thinking Lundy. And I'm thinking Henry.
Okay, that's cool.
It's really cool, eh?
Yes,
it's really cool. Okay. So you're always looking to see what pleases your spouse and not what pleases you, and vice versa, which is what we just said.
Yes.
Right. So in order to be bilingual, you need to be practicing. In order to learn a new language, you need to practice it. Right? And the more you practice it, the more it becomes a part of you.
Yeah, because you can't just go for lessons and not implement it.
Now, if we go back to biblical principles, we've heard that saying about dying to self.
Okay.
You die to self.
So I must think like you, not like me, so that I can get from you what I need, because you think like me.
Yes.
And if anyone's confused now, I can't repeat it.
Right, so let's look at, and I'm going to start from the ladies, and you're going to love this one.
Emma, what?
You're going to love this one. So how do you do that? So let's just take Henry's number 2. So how do you romanticize your husband is by initiating sex sometimes, or intimacy.
This is making more sense to me.
Are you liking this?
No, this is making sense. We should have done this one first. Okay, carry on.
But now we're over to you.
No, can we stay by you initiate?
One example. I gave you yours. You said number 2 was
the most can we just stay there for an hour?
No.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. It's my turn now. You're being selfish. You're not dying to self.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Men?
What do you think?
Cuddles on the couch.
Yeah, and long conversations. You need to talk to me more.
Those deep, meaningful conversations.
Yes.
But how do we have those deep, meaning conversations when men aren't really deep and meaningful in general? I know some of you men are, but we're not. We like more like a fact. Hey, that looks green. Done. We don't elaborate on that. So how do we have that?
But if you love your wife, you're going to sit and listen to her and have that conversation and be attentive when you're listening to her.
Okay.
It's not in the one ear out the other ear or thinking about something else. It's having that connection and having a full-on conversation. Henry gave some tips of advice last week where you said we need to Google date night questions. Yes. Perfect way to have those.
Tell me about your dreams. What dream did you have when you were young about what you wanted to become?
Yes.
All those things will tell you incredible things about your wife, and those kick off those deep, meaningful conversations.
That way you're giving a language demonstration rather than a language lesson. So try not to give a language lesson. The lesson is telling them what to do constantly, and demonstrating is actually doing it. So the more I do it for you, you will automatically want to reciprocate.
Yeah, and the more I do it for you, you'd want to do more for me.
Yeah. So when we say we observe your spouse and look and see what they like and what they dislike. And if I make this statement is a perfect marriage is two servants in love that are constantly coming into each other's worlds, wanting to go out of their way to please each other in a way that they can receive it as love.
That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah, I took a moment for that to set in. That was very well done. You see, one of the things that happens when we aren't romancing each other, when we aren't paying attention to each other, is, and we've seen a lot of this in this lockdown period, where you're in each other's company for weeks on end, the whole day, all day long, but you're still feeling lonely. It's almost like that scenario where your wife or your husband was working long hours, they were never home, and now they're home and it still feels like they're never home.
Even though they're there.
Yeah. It's because you've stopped pursuing each other. You've stopped wanting to hear your spouse's heart and their dreams. You've stopped romancing them. You've stopped concerning yourself. And it's funny how when these things come up, when you go on holiday, they always say the perfect holiday period for a couple is 10 days. Because if you stay longer, you get bored with each other's company.
So sad.
Yeah. So, we need to learn to be in each other's company, not just be in each other's company, but be in each other's hearts, serving each other. The problem with when you are in each other's company for such a long time is there's no coming home moment. You're sharing all the same stories, and it applies especially when couples work together.
Big one.
Because then one of the things is they constantly in each other's space, so they have nothing new to talk about.
It's not like they've gone out to work and had a different experience for the day than what their spouse did.
Yeah.
They've been in the same space all the time, which means it's boring.
Yeah, so now we've got nothing to talk about because you were there.
You
what
know
am I going to say to you? Yeah?
We've had a couple
We
of days
experienced that. What am I going to say to you? I've got no news for you. And then it becomes difficult because there's no news, no experiences. And you start not being heard because your spouse isn't paying attention to you. So you naturally, even though they hear instructions, you feel that they're not hearing your emotion. They're not hearing your cry for attention. And that's difficult because now I feel like we are just stuck in a rut. The same mundane, day in, day out, the same thing. Because we aren't focusing on each other's desire to be loved. We are focusing on our own comfort of how things are. And then it makes it very difficult. So what we need to do, and just a few headline solutions here as we're busy running out of time, is we need to set times for planned connection. kind of plan it and say, listen, yeah, we're in each other's company, but let's get together. And some of these we did cover in one of our sessions, the frustration to harmony.
Yeah.
Some of these also work. And when you connect, to be present, don't be stuck in your own head. Be present with the mindset of, I'm here to love my wife or my husband, my spouse. Communicate, use those date night questions. Rediscover things that you thought you already knew about your spouse. So if you thought you knew what their favorite color was, ask them again, what's your favorite color? And this time ask them, why is that your favorite color? And if it's changed, ask them why it's changed. What made it change? And what emotion, what does it make them feel? Yeah, things like that.
And I mean, almost discussing, what is your biggest fear right now?
Yeah.
That's a good one for
create
couples.
safety.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, if you had to ask me what is my biggest fear or what is your biggest frustration right now, to unpack it with you, because you're my security. Remember the needs. I need you to give me the security. It's a good topic to unpack those things. We often think that in marriages we need to talk about the finance and the kids and the boring stuff. It's when we go deeper that we actually find that value.
Yeah. The other thing is to get into hobbies, sports, games, but
competitive.
Yeah, non-competitive ones. You can't go and do something that the one's going to be exceptionally good in and the other one's going to lose all the time. Yeah, play a game of cards, rummy, or whatever the case is, where you can communicate in what you are doing, but it can be fun for both of you. Because it would be really pointless for Dundee and I to take up tennis. Because if I have to hit the ball, she's not going to be able to hit it back. And yes, I know there's some ladies that will put me to shame in tennis, but not Lundy. And I'll be frustrated because she keeps missing, and she'll be frustrated because I keep hitting it too hard. And that's not going to be good for our relationship. And don't always be so serious. Chill. You're in a relationship. Play, laugh, enjoy each other's company.
Have fun.
Yeah. Have time alone to be alone. That's also all right. Say, hey, I need some alone time. And be alone. And the main thing, is discover each other new every moment of every day. Pay attention to the way that your spouse does something different, or how they do things and you've just never noticed. See how they walk down the passage. See if your wife's hips are swaying more than usual or less. Observe, compare, talk about, but recreate that focus that you had in the beginning, because you had it.
You did have it.
Everyone had it.
And the awesome thing is, right in the beginning, there was a love drug involved. But the amazing thing is, when that love drug wears off and you start to do it consciously, it's actually 10 times better because it's real.
Because now it's real. You can have that love drug, but it's not a drug anymore. It's a choice.
It's a choice.
It's a decision you make to observe only the best that you can. And by making a conscious decision is that I'm going to elevate you as my spouse every moment of every day. I'm going to fulfill your desires and your needs. So how do you rust-proof your marriage? Be romantic. Men, you can also be romantic, because there's benefits for you when she is romantic. So ladies, romance counts for you as well. Men, yes, you struggle with being romantic, but you set that time aside. And ladies, you think you should just be receiving the romance? No, you've also got a duty to give men romance, not how you like receiving it, how they would like receiving it. Awesome. Thank you, guys. We haven't seen any questions. please, if you have any questions, pop them up. You can definitely put on your mic if you want to chat to us directly now. We're just reading here.
Carl agrees with your number 2.
Yeah.
Are there any other men that agree with the number 2? Or did the ladies win tonight?
Yeah, we so often get ourselves caught up in pleasing our wives that the wives forget to please husbands as well. And it is a big thing because men don't always want to be doing the romanticizing. They also want to be romanticized, just differently. So yeah, the comment is we will definitely revisit unpacking our respective romance languages to ensure both our desires are met in the season we are in. It's very important to talk about those. It's very important to say, hey, this works for me. This doesn't work for me.
It is. Awesome. Next week, you're on the line.
I'm on the line. I'm speaking.
Your favorite subject.
You speak?
No, you're speaking your favorite subject. You're speaking your number 2.
I'm speaking my number 2. Yes, we'll be speaking about intimacy. Intimacy in the bedroom, intimacy in our relationship, intimacy from a sexual, non-sexual perspective, but how to grow that bond between husband and wife from a intimate perspective, not a sexual perspective, but intimate perspective, which is really I love that subject. I love sharing on it, and Lundy likes interrupting me and adding to what I say just to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, of course.
All right, guys, if there's no more questions, we want to thank you. We thank you for allowing us into your homes, into your relationships, into your lives. And we hope and trust that we are adding something to you and something to your relationship. And remember, you may not have agreed with absolutely everything we said, and that is fine. Take the gold out of it and use that and apply that. And just listening to this isn't good enough. You need to apply it. You need to do something about it. I remind you guys to like us on Facebook, Doing Marriage with Henry and Lundy. You'll get a lot of little nuggets there, a lot of keeping you informed, a lot of relationship advice running through. Where else are we? We're on YouTube. You'll get these videos on YouTube. Also Doing Marriage with Henry and Lundy. Subscribe. Have a look at the videos the previous videos that was there, and enjoy the time with each other. Use this as an opportunity to be together and take some time and pause the video and say, hey, that was interesting. What's your thoughts about it?
Use this as a discussion topic.
Yeah, don't get so stuck up. It's really nice when you can pause something and then discuss each line item, because this is a lot to take in. We've had time to prepare, but I'm sure that you would take the time to just revisit it and actually discuss those items which we raised.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for the positive feedback, guys. I am really, really looking forward to it as well, Scott. Next week is going to be fun. You guys have a really, really awesome week ahead. And remember, love her like you love yourself.
Not the same way as you love yourself, the way she needs to be loved.
Yes. But okay, we won't get into this debate again. And ladies, love him like you. Number 2. That's all I'm saying. Number 2 is very, very important. But most of all, number 1 does come above that. If he's not feeling respected, number 2 doesn't really come into the equation.
Awesome. And we'll see you guys next week for Intimacy with Henry.
Now, that sounds a bit rough. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.